Hello everyone and welcome back to another pen and paper podcast. Thank you for all the comments on the last two I've done. Today we're talking about something called a blue sheet. This is something that I've used for both account management teams and also enterprise sales teams. Because what it does, it gives you a very comprehensive view of the opportunity or the account. And it's not done in Salesforce. Now, I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for that. But this gives you an opportunity to take the information that's in Salesforce and apply it into a matrix, which then, once you populate these areas, it does create a set of actions and drivers to work on. These blue sheets essentially can be done as often as you need them to be. So for large accounts, where you want to kind of track progress a little bit more granularly, you can do these once a month if you want, and can essentially a separate tab per month, which can also show progress. And the beauty of these as well is that these, in my version anyway, the Excel is printable onto an A4, so it can be very easily given to a member of the leadership team to see what's going on as well. So today, of these particular four sections, we're going to look at section 1. Section 1 is about the competitive position. The other sections are just so you've got them, but and we will do these. Something called matching buying criteria, and this is a scoring criteria, and this is a scoring section. Section 3 is on a contact map and profiles, which I actually quite like. It's the most complex one, I think, of all of them. And 4, it's the win and vision statement of the client, which again will become clear. So I've already started building out what section 1 looks like for you. It's got essentially 3 areas that we need to fit three rows. Now, what do we mean by competitive position? Now, competitive position, it's anything or everything that can get in that we are competing for in terms of time, effort, and resources within our prospective client or within our existing client. And what this gives us, this competitive position, gives us a chance to kind of take a step back and view what is really happening. Is it everything? Probably not. And I hope not, because hopefully these things can grow and evolve. But it gives you a good idea of what to look at and what to question. So the first one is actually competition, and I've given it four options to choose from. Essentially, all you do is colour them in, so you can see in a snapshot which one you've chosen. In this case, I've got 4 options. I've got no information at all on the competition. There is nobody else. We're joint, as in the solution I'm offering, we're joint with somebody else, or there's more than one of us, and we're a front runner. So I think all these make sense. You might be asking, why have I put no info here? It's important to know what you don't know. And I think in this case, what we don't know is that what else could be going on in that business from a people or a processes or a platform perspective that we don't know about. So this one for me is simple. It's good to have a data point, even if there is no data there, because it shows what you need to work on. So as you move to this, and we confidently say there's nobody else, this is the one that I have the big exclamation mark around whenever I hear this, because going back to the previous podcast on risks cascading down and benefits flowing up, this one is where we are looking at internal processes potentially, or people, or maybe platforms that we are being judged against or compared against. So this may just even be an idea in someone's head, right, that we haven't uncovered. Oh, I thought this is something that you could be doing or should be doing. This one is the most risky. I think also this one is the hardest one to make sure that we move our prospects in understanding what we're trying to learn from them. I think our risks cascading and benefits flowing podcast kind of covers that, so do take a look at that. But this is the one I put. This is the riskiest one for me. We're joint. Either there is somebody else or something else or another platform that we're competing against. That could be the start of an RFP, or it could be the start of an internal selection process, or we're a front runner. Generally, I find myself in most deals and with most enterprise opportunities, or even with account management team, being the front runner. They're never not going to want to improve what they're doing. So to say I think we're no one else also means that we're being a little bit too certain of what we're doing. So this one I think is the most likely one. moving from joints to front runner is all about understanding business needs and product value, which I will go into. The other one I filled out already is timing for priorities. Now, I've taken this language directly from emails and phone calls that I've listened to and been part of. Again, this I think should all hopefully make sense. Later, as part of an opportunity or even an account management, for me is slightly worrying because they've literally said it's not something they want to do right now, which is a bit worrying. Working it in, there's certainly a need, but we're not top of their priority list. Active, there is a need, and we're in that top of priority list. There's a schedule, there is a framework, there's a time that they're working towards. This, I find the most reasonable of all of these. I find the most relevant for most work that I do. Urgent, why not urgent? Well, urgent I think is good in some senses, but urgency is about time. This is where time becomes the driver for the next step, rather than the need. Now, the need may be so compelling that they need it yesterday. So, be careful of urgency being too high, because if time becomes the driver rather than need, be careful when it goes live. So just be careful here. Urgency can also be disrupted by things that aren't need-driven. If it's time-driven, and it could be the end of year or end of quarter or something that you can't control, when that period goes, what happens then? So this is why I'll put an exclamation mark there. It's always good to have an urgent, but I think active is the one that's the more reasonable one, just like front runner here. So the one we are going to work on together is platform significance. I quite like this one because it looks at the broader view of how you're managing all your internal stakeholders and what that means for the opportunity or the account you're running. So I'm going to be drawing, let me write them in first. So it's individual, institutional, I'll just write this as instit. There's a project, and then has that project been resourced? And I'm going to draw a very simple pyramid here, just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about. My pyramids aren't very good. So what this platform significance means is that, is it an individual? So this is it significant just for an individual? So essentially, the individual is, let's say, at the bottom of the pyramid. Traditional hierarchies work like this. I'm hoping we don't work in traditional hierarchies, but let's assume that we are, for all intents and purposes, working at a user level or an individual role level, where that individual role level has set that person has said, hey, this is great, and she really needs what we have, right? So this individual has been uncovered as this individual has decided that what you do is great for what they need and for their particular role, all right? Okay, so I'll leave that for one there. Second one is institutional, and you can probably work out where I'm going with this. This one instead is kind of top down. This is where the institution has realized that there's something that they need to do, and that a digital transformation program is what is going to solve it. And as a result, they could say, right, we need to change the way that we do things. Here's a platform, or go do it. Now, both of these have their merits, right? But you can't rely on just the one or the other. So both of these are important, but you can't rely on one or the other. Individually, could be role specific, but has no broader appeal to the broader strategy of their business. Institutional, wonderful strategy, great vision, but doesn't really apply to the individual role's needs that come out of those risks and benefits that we talked about previously. So you can't have one without the other. A lot of people go high in prospecting because they believe that guarantees them a better ability to cascade the value prop of the platform. It does initially, but you can't do this without the individual stakeholders who are actually going to be using the tool. Okay, so individual, it's significant only in an individual. Institutional, it's strategic value that they feel can be best met by the platform. They're okay, but you can't initially, but you can't survive without the other. And that's why we have a project. Essentially, when you combine these two together, where you have both individual and institutional stakeholders all aligned on the business on the product value and business needs, at that point, they're together, they're working together, you have a project. That means that the aims and aspirations of both the institution and the individual are being met together by a project. So there's a team together. So there's an aligned team around a project which has defined goals. It could be a proof of value or a POC, whatever you want to call it, but this project has an aligned team. You can say, is that the best? And I go, well, what's the next best one? In my opinion, is that that project has been resourced. Now, a resource is different. A resource project is different from just a project, because a resource project means that time, effort, and sometimes even money has been assigned to the project for it to progress. So what that means is you've got legal engaged. You've got probably teams who aren't necessarily part of the decision-making process or initially as part of the project for the key goals, but they still need to be, such as security. For example, if you're in the fintech solution, it could be learning and development, if it's, or it could be HR. But what resource means is that you've got time, effort, and people engaged who aren't necessarily part of the original project team. And that's what I mean by resourced. It's quite common in startups particularly, but also in other large organizations, where they won't even look at legal T's and C's until it's met a certain threshold to progress and to dedicate resources to that. I mean, even in some companies that I've worked at, they won't even look at legal T's and C's unless it meets the threshold of value, because of the time and effort it takes before they believe that the actual commitment is valid. So the last point that I wanted to make, particularly on this pyramid and around the competitive position, is that all decisions are made in committee. Now, this sounds like quite a bold statement, but it reflects the current buying processes that are happening in organisations. Even if one person holds the cash, even if there's one person that's selling to, and she's the one who actually makes the ultimate decision, she will go to her team and she'll ask her team, does this make sense? Is what we're doing here with this platform something that I can trust and that you can trust on? That's why decisions are made in committee. Be mindful of that. So while you may get an institutional or individual stakeholders, be mindful of this. Who else is involved in all the decisions around changing how a business works? It can even be a committee of 1 or 2 people. So don't think it has to be 15 or 30 people to get this through. So there we go. So for today, we've looked at a competitive position and what it means in terms of how we're going to look at a deal, and seeing which of these sections, just you need to colour in 1 per row, gives you an accurate view of where you are and where you need to go. And I hope this has been useful. More to come. I will do 2, 3, and 4 in the next week. Thank you very much.